profile.
Yeah, how do I turn on the video? Oh, it's there. It's at the top.
Um,
There you go. There you go.
man, how do I turn down my microphone? That's what I need to figure out. There you go. Hey, we're broadcasting live, but hold up. Let me figure out how to turn down my microphone. How do I do this? Check, check. Can you say something?
Check, check. Testing.
One more thing.
Check one, check two.
All right, that's fine. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Hi, it's good to see you. How are you
Yo,
doing?
I'm all right. It's been like 11 months since I met you in person.
Yes.
Like,
You came all the way. I appreciate that.
you and Mark Seaman.
Aha.
I am a groupie. Like,
Okay,
oh,
great.
I'm so excited right now. I
Okay,
don't want to
good.
make you feel uncomfortable, but it's like,
No.
oh, I never felt this way about another man before. So,
Okay.
how's all right? So, like, you've been going hard in F sharp, but you've been doing this for like 5 years or more.
I think 2012 when that was when I started my blog, and that was when I didn't know anything.
That's hard
So
to imagine.
incredible to imagine that people can not know things. That's good though. It's good. It's like because you run into people and say, oh yeah, well I wish I knew as much as you. It's like, well, I didn't know very much either, and it's like you can learn it stuff. It's not like it's not magic. So yeah, I didn't know anything about F sharp into I think maybe 2000. I was like doing it a little bit, but then I started my blog, and I keep saying this to everybody. Start a blog because if it forces yourself to learn. If you write down, if you try and explain to somebody else, it really forces you to learn it. So
Yeah.
doing that blog was really the best thing I ever did because it really it was good.
Your blogs, sorry for that. Your blogs are really detailed. Like I maintain a technical blog, and
Uh-huh.
I'll spend like 3 to 4 hours because I'm really bad at grammar and spelling, and I'll spend 3 to 4 hours writing my 5 paragraph essay, and like it consumes like a quarter of my business day,
Yeah.
and like so now I'll just record a video and I'll go through like the code base, giving an overview of some code that I wrote and my thought process about writing it. And like what used to take 3 to 4 hours and putting images up there and trying to make
Right.
it as formal as I could, and yet it still looks butchered. I find videos just a lot easier for me, even though I'm still kind of careless and reckless. Have you considered adding videos to your fun and profit
I actually have.
website?
Yeah, a couple of people have nagged me to do videos, and I guess I think for exactly the same reason why people like doing videos. That's why I sort of scared of doing them because I'm kind of nervous about improvising. Because
Really?
I mean, I think to do a good video, well, it depends. I mean, there's different. The some people like the professional videos. People write, they write a script and then they do the video and then they like do the voiceover as a separate recording and then they edit it all together. It's like that's a lot of work,
Yeah,
and
those are
I don't really want to
professional.
do that. But the other hand is like you just like turn it on and start talking. And I have to say that really scares me. The nice thing about writing is I can think about what I'm going to say, and then I can write it. And if I make a mistake, I can go back and edit it, and then I can, you know, fix it up. With video, you can't do this like this live.
You're Scott Wlaschin. You don't make mistakes.
That's what you think. That's why I like to write because you don't see all the terrible things I've done.
Yeah.
It's like it's hiding how the sausage is made. It's like you don't see the process of the all the yeah. I mean that's why I like writing in some sense because you just see the final result, and with a video you're going to see all the mistakes and all the misspellings and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So.
My brother-in-law is an electrician. I know a couple people that work in the trades, and so like to that point, he'll describe a project that's taking him like a week to get done. I'm like, I was watching Home Improvement the other day, and they did it in 1 hour.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's right, exactly. And I think that's the thing is it's people do, and that's unfortunately, yeah, you do get this impression. I have a friend who works as a warden on a bird reserve, and he says the same thing. People come because they've seen like a golden eagle on a nature program, and he says, yeah, you have to like hike 20 miles, and then you have to wait 3 weeks, and if you're lucky, you might see it. And he said, and then people say, well, on the TV, all they did is they like drove up to this thing and they saw it like 5 minutes later. Same this, yeah, definitely the same thing. Yeah, I think that's a good argument for doing video then, because it does show that people are not, it does show that things are not perfect, that you are making up as you go along half the time. That's good thing. That's good for people to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my strategy. I keep expectations really low. And so like if you look at the videos that I do, especially when I'm attempting to discuss some type of tutorial, it's very rough, it's very unprofessional. But as long as I consistently do that, then people won't like hold me to a very high standard. So it's that's my strategy. It sounds really retarded, but in a way it's like the first thing I think about is artists, like really successful artists, like they have a lot of stress, right? Because they're only as good as their last performance,
right?
And so you have a certain percentage of artists that like not to be too warped, but commit suicide or whatever because they have this enormous amount of stress to sustain their level of, for lack of a better term, I can't think of the right word, but they have this huge like burden on them to maintain or sustain what people perceive of them, and they're always
right.
they can't go below what they've already done. They either have to sustain it or they have to like outperform, and then they usually burn out. And so if I keep my standards really low, I don't have to deal with that stress.
Yeah, so, I mean, and the other way to take it, well, the other thing is to take a lesson from like jazz musicians, like Miles Davis. He would always do like 1 or 2 takes, and then if he didn't, he wouldn't like do 20, 30 takes of the same song. He'd just do 1 or 2, and if he didn't like it, he'd just throw it away and do something else. So there's a lot to be said for, not trying to be perfect. Yeah, just be honest to who you are, and don't create too much stress of trying to be perfect. I definitely agree with that. There's a lot to be said for that. Yeah.
So I was listening to you on I used to drive from I was doing a contract well, you've been to the States a couple of times, but
I used to live in Portland.
Okay.
Portland, Oregon,
I thought you lived in LA. I was listening to
I did live in LA. I moved to LA in the mid 80s, and I lived there for 15 years.
Okay.
And then I moved to Portland, Oregon for like 5 years, and then I moved back to the UK. So yeah. And my dad's American. My dad's from Nebraska, so I have a lot of American family. People live in Nebraska, apparently. Yes, they do.
I thought it was like Indian reservations and stuff. But...
no, there's some big cities. There's like, my dad was from Scotts Bluff, which is like 15,000 people. That's a pretty big city by Nebraska standards.
Okay.
And I mean, Omaha's big. But Lincoln and Scotts Bluff are reasonably big. But yeah, I think Omaha is probably the only decent size place. I remember, but the west side of Nebraska is pretty empty.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I remember my dog's outside on my porch looking at me wanting to come back inside. I remember listening to the podcast with Developer on Fire, and I think I captured how you were advocating be eager to learn about things unrelated to software. I thought that's what I captured from you.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you've been going hard in F# for a while. Are you still just F#, like this is where you put your concentration in, or have you decided to focus your attention or talents in other areas?
No, I mean F#. I like F# because it's very pragmatic. But I think I always learning. You always can learn from other areas. So like I don't just read F# stuff. I read I read a lot of Haskell stuff. I read Clojure stuff. I read stuff about JavaScript and and in general for software development. I mean, F#'s just a language, and software development, to be honest, the language you use doesn't really make that much difference. I mean, I like certain languages more than other languages, but people have done fantastic things using PHP, and so or Visual Basic. People give them a lot of flack, but it's what you do with it. The language itself is less important than what you do with it, and so my thing is it's about delivery, doing something useful, understanding how to deliver value, how to understand your customers, all this stuff. And so there's a lot about, process improvement. There's a lot about psychology. There's a lot about, systems thinking and stuff. That's good. I think all software developers should understand that stuff. So the language is sort of the least important thing, actually. I mean, obviously I have some affection for certain languages, but really in the big scheme of things, it's not the most important part of software development.
All right, so I'm really curious what you think, and if you don't want to discuss this topic, I completely understand. Do you work as a consultant, or are you a full-time employee, or?
No, I'm a consultant right now. Yeah, I'm just doing odd jobs, and in between that, I do writing. I'm trying to work on finishing various book projects. Yeah. So that's just me being lazy. So I kind of work for a few months, and then I kind of live off that while I'm trying to get working on my book, and then I'm like being lazy, and then I work a few months after that again. So
that sounds like
we'll see.
So here's my question, right? And I'm not going to ask you about personal experiences, but I really would like to learn of how you would handle situations where I'm sure that, even though it's hard for me to believe, I'm sure that when you walk into shops, people don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
And for someone to have invested the amount of time and effort to get to the level that you're at, how do you deal with shops that do not hold themselves to a certain standard that you would expect professional developers to hold themselves to?
Oh, that's a tough one. To be honest, I've never actually worked anywhere that I've found to be like a fantastic place, a fantastically well-organized place. That's maybe just I've had bad luck or whatever. But it's just sometimes it's just because there's business pressures. Normally businesses want to just get stuff out the door, and so there's always shortcuts, and there's technical debt, and there's managers who don't understand software development, and I've never actually worked in a sort of mythical, fantastic place where everyone is perfect. So my take is just if I'm in a situation where people are not, if I'm not on the same page with other people, I try and explain why something is useful. Like I've worked in places where they didn't have source control, and it's like, okay, so I would say something like, well, have you ever had a problem where someone, you lost some code and you lost like a week's worth of code because someone deleted a file or something, and they say, yeah, it's really annoying, and I say, well, have you heard of this thing called Git or Subversion or and they say, well, that's really, complicated. We haven't got time to change your process. It's too complicated to learn a new thing. So what I would say in that section, well, I say, if you give me a couple of hours to set it up, and if you let me give you a demo, I can probably teach you in half an hour the basic stuff you need to know to get started. And would you be willing to give me a couple of hours? And people would normally say yes.
You say this to who? The team?
The manager, yeah. Or I might just do it in my spare. I might just do it depending on how locked down the business is. I might just do it in my, without permission. It's like there's this thing, ask forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, if you can normally squeeze a few hours in, and you basically say, look, let me just show you something. This is something I did in my spare time. And here's what you can do. Look, here's everything checked into Git, and here's me deleting a file, and look, I can magically get it back again. And people say, oh, that's kind of cool. And that's, keep it focused on the value rather than just saying you're an idiot because you don't use source control. I just say, I guess I always assume that people are doing things for good reasons.
Okay.
And it may be that their reasons are not the reasons that I agree with, but I guess I tend to assume that people are basically rational, or at least they're not totally stupid.
Really?
It's very tempting to think that people are really, really stupid sometimes, or that people are kind of malicious, or people are deliberately doing something to annoy you.
Yeah,
And
I'll say that about.
sometimes that is true, but I try and assume that people are they're trying to do the right thing, but they have the wrong incentive, or they are scared of change, or whatever it is. And so I try and take their concerns seriously and show them through example that their concerns are not, that it's not as scary as they think. A lot of it's
It's a belief
fear.
system.
Yeah, a lot of it is fear. I mean, it's amazing how much stuff people, especially about change, people tend to get very freaked out by change. And so yeah, trying to address that and show people it's not as scary as you think is maybe a good step.
What's your percentage of success in being an agent of change? Is it 50-50, or are you such a diplomat that
No, it's on and off. It's people. The other thing is people can only change when they want to change. You can't force change down people's throats.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard as well. That can be super frustrating.
Take on a little roller coaster ride as I open up this window or door for my dog. Okay, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, sometimes you just have to plant the seeds. I mean, for example, if I'm working in a company that refuses to use source control, I might just use Git locally and basically check everyone else's code in, and then at least my code is under source control, and I can't help if they can't put their, something like that. And the same thing with, issue tracking requirements. I mean, I've often another thing that bugs me is when people start diving into code without thinking about the problem.
yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is, a couple of weeks of coding can save you hours of planning.
Let me interject this really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm listening. I am your student, right? And so there's a lot of things that you're like, man, this guy is so arrogant. But honestly, I'm really listening to you. So most of the people that do know me, they know, I'm a craftsman supremacist. And it's funny how we don't really have the title of software engineers, because that's what a craftsman really is. But an engineer is someone that complies with standards. A craftsman is someone that goes above and beyond. But anyway,
Right.
That's not what I really want to talk about. Oh, what's my train of thought? My train of thought is, and I'm losing my train of thought already. I forgot what I was going to say.
You're talking about craftsmanship.
When
When you're in a situation where people don't appreciate you.
Oh, no, I remember.
Yeah.
I hate architects with a passion, with extreme prejudice.
All right.
Now, I guess there's different breeds of architects, but the shops I walk into, they're all the same. The ivory tower, and this,
Yeah.
I'm saying this based on what you just mentioned about not really evaluating the context of the problem that may require a solution, may require effort. And so the biggest thing that annoys me at a lot of these Fortune 500 companies is the architect that hasn't wrote code or written code in 10 years, and they say, yeah, we're going to use, they automatically start bringing in all these third-party frameworks.
Yeah.
But they don't map it to specific requirements They
Right.
just say, thou shall use, Caliber and Micro. Thou shall use Entity Framework. Thou shall use.
Right.
The worst was like, we're going to use NUnit. I'm like, all right, I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, no one had experience writing. No one knew how to write a unit test, but they're mandating.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, why don't you just use MS tests to avoid less ceremony? And they're like, no,
Right. Right.
because so like, do you understand my frustration?
I totally understand. I think this comes to a deeper. I mean, personally, I think some teams say you shouldn't have any kind of design or architecture at all. I think design and architecture are really important, but I think that first of all, that needs to be integrated into the software development. I don't think you should have these, architect astronauts who never even do any coding. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
You absolutely need to be anyone who's going to make design decisions needs to be on the foot. They need to be in the same place. They need to be on the same team. You can't have things passed down to you from on high, because there's a more general problem, which is the lack of feedback. I mean, to my mind, and this is where the whole systems thinking comes in. This applies to any kind of situation where if there's no feedback, you're going to have problems. So, if you make a decision, but if you make the decision, but you're not responsible for the outcome of the decision or dealing with the consequences of that decision, you're going to be making bad decisions. You need to be in the loop, where if you make a decision, you get feedback as soon as possible as to how successful that decision was.
This
And
is what I say.
yeah. And that's true for managers, that's true for architects, and that's true for software developers, because I've worked places where the developers don't do any testing and they throw it over the
Really?
wall to there's a separate QA department, right? And they throw it over the wall to the QA people, and then the developers never have to deal with the consequences of their bugs. And then the same thing with production. Sometimes you throw it over the wall to production, and the production people have to deal with problems, but the developers have to deal with so it's just the lack of it's just this kind of linear model and lack of feedback at all times is really, really deadly. That's, to me, is the most deadly sin in any kind of process. And I think it was Jez Humble, the continuous development guy. He's saying, who cares which you can call it agile, you can call it continuous development, you can call it doesn't really matter what you call it, as long as there's a feedback loop, any process will get better. And if there's no feedback loop, any process will get worse. I mean, that's the fundamental thing. It doesn't, what label you give it is irrelevant, So whether you call it, continuous integration and test-driven development and, all these stuff, it's really just different words for having a very fast feedback loop.
Yeah, I often say, like, architects are employed to make premature decisions. And like, people don't like when I say that, but I guess my question, instead of me like complaining, like, what do you recommend? I mean, you mentioned like having a tight feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so like everybody but developers say, oh, well, that's agile. But like, I mean, we're still writing legacy code off of greenfield projects, like right out the floodgate.
That's
We
pretty bad.
are. I said it. I said it in the daily stand up. I'm like, yo, we're writing legacy code on a brand new project, and they were just looking at me, and I'm like, never mind. So like, what could someone like me do? If you do have, maybe you don't have an answer, but if you have a recommendation of something that people like us should try, because
Well,
we really want to do our best.
yeah, the first thing is you need to not piss off the managers. Because
Yeah.
one of the things is so easy to say, I'm right and you're wrong, and it's easy to come across as being negative. I mean, and it's unfair because you're just raising valid issues, but a lot of times other people, it comes across as being, it's like, well, this person, all he does is complain all the time, blah 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 blah. And like I say, even though it's very unfair, that's how it gets perceived. So what I try and do is I try and suck up to the managers as much as possible.
Okay.
So what I do is I mean, that's a terrible way of putting it, but I basically try and help the manager or help the person who's making the decisions. I try and help them do their job better, and then I gain their trust. And once they trust you, then you start having a bit of power to start changing the system. But if it's just an adversarial thing where they doing it one way and it's like, well, you're wrong, you shouldn't do it that way, then you're not going to, if you're in a position where you don't have the power, that's going to be hard for you to make changes, so you basically have to ingratiate yourself.
Okay, so it's kind of like fly in under the radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once you get people's trust, it's amazing what you can get away with. I mean, but I found that once people trust you and they think, oh, so-and-so, he's really good at, everything he does, he delivers on time and everything's really good. And once they trust you like that, you can start getting away with all sorts of shit which you couldn't get away with. This is then the thing when you can say, okay, this is when you can start influencing the rest of the team, because people start looking up to you. And this is the thing, if you can get people to respect you, then there's a difference between having official power and having influence, and this is one of the things I learned even as being a manager, because to be honest, I'm not a very good manager myself, and even if you have the job title of being a manager, you still can't change things. And what you really have to do is influence people, and it's amazing how much influence you can have, even if you don't have a title of being a manager. You can be a lowly, because I'm sure you've worked in places where there's typically there's some developer who's been there for 10 years, and there's everybody listens to what they say.
Yeah.
And even if they're not, sometimes they're full of, rubbish.
I'll call them lifers, just like.
Yeah, sometimes they're full of it. But the point is that they've earned the respect, and so when they say something, people listen to them. So I guess the point is, if you can get to that position yourself, you don't have to be a lifer, but you can be somebody who comes across as competent, someone who comes across as helpful, someone who comes across as non-adversarial. People will respect you, and then once they respect you, then you can start changing things.
All right, so I really appreciate this feedback.
Yeah.
Now there's I don't know if caveat is the right term to use, but when I walk into a shop, I usually get paid close to twice as much as the full-time employees. Okay.
Right.
There's a reason why I'm mentioning that. I have this enormous I have this burden where my belief system is I am hired to hit the ground running. All right, they want to see where their money is going, and they expect me to walk on water. Now,
okay.
Now, from what I captured from you is well, Scott, man, you can't be belligerent. You can't even do logical proofs to demonstrate that they're wrong and you're right. You have to just fly in under the radar and persuade and just win them over through kindness or whatever. That's kind of what I'm capturing.
Yeah.
But does that conflict with management's expectations of you, and they're paying you twice as much, if not more? Do you ever feel is there ever a conflict between, damn, this is probably going to take me 6 weeks to demonstrate how awesome I am relative to the shop that I'm in, but I don't have time to play the political game. I need to really get in, and that's something that I face. It's I don't have time. I feel as if I don't have time to sit, listen, disagree, but not voice it. I have to hurry up and make a difference. Do you understand what I'm trying to articulate?
I do understand, but by the way, I'm just going to recommend an excellent book, which is by Gerald Weinberg.
Okay.
And I think it's called The Consultant's Handbook. I highly recommend it. He's been around a long time, and he was a consultant in the 70s and 80s. But he's really, really good on office politics. And he's always about, and as a consultant, he comes in and he's trying to help people change. And even though they've hired him, they often don't want to change. And they often, they always say, well, I want you to solve this problem. And he goes and he says, actually, your problem, that's not your problem. Your real problem is this thing over here. and they say, I don't want to solve that problem over here. I want you to solve this thing, and And it's like he said, but that's not going to make any difference. And they say, well, I don't care whether it doesn't make any difference. He gets super frustrated, and he says, this is just one of the things. You just have to live with the fact that you can't win them all. You have to do the best you can. It's always politics. It's always a people problem. It's never a technical problem. You can solve the technical problem without their help. I mean, if they just want you to write some code, go in and write the code. If it's very tempting when you do that to say, well, I could totally improve your process. If you just listen to me, I could help you in so many other ways.
Yeah, so stop right there.
Yeah.
Because people will argue that your job as a programmer is not to write code. Your job as a professional developer is to deliver quote unquote value.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I'm hearing something different from you. And I guess we're talking about survival. Survival, you do what you're told, because apparently that's why they hired you. They didn't hire you to solve their problems or to solve world hunger. They hired you to do what they told you to write code for.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is just the
I hear
reality.
two different things.
They are two different things. And if you could cure hunger, if you found a way to cure world hunger, they wouldn't be interested. Because they've hired you to do this one thing, and sometimes they've hired you to do something completely stupid. And this is just life. I mean, you have to decide. There's some stuff you wouldn't be able to. If it's so bad that you can't tolerate it, then you need to get out and quit that thing and do something else. But often it's just, it's not that it's just kind of sometimes it's pointless or it's wasteful, and you just have to do the little bit you can do, but just recognize you can't change people who don't want to be changed.
Yeah, that's what Michael Feathers told me. He was like, you can't save the world if the world doesn't want to be saved.
Yeah. I mean, you can make a difference. I think one thing is to do it by leading through example. So like I say, rather than saying you should be using source control, you can say, look, here's me using source control, and here's the kinds of things I can do. Or here's me doing test-driven development, and look at means my code doesn't have bugs or whatever. You can just lead by example, and try and educate people, especially if you're just a contractor. That's really the best you can do.
Yeah.
And if you can and also just get allies, other developers, especially if you're a contractor, you're often brought in. And if there's permanent people there, you're the enemy to those permanent people, because you're threatening their job, basically. And so one of the things, if you can become their ally, if you can go and say, I'm not trying to threaten your job, I'm really just trying to take some burden off you and help you a bit. If you can get those people to be your allies, or you can be an ally to them, then again, you have a bit more influence and a bit more power, and then you might be able to change things. But it's not easy, and there's many battles that you won't win.
So the reason why I really care about what we're talking about is because I don't think every software developer is a factory worker.
Yeah.
I think that there's some developers that they really enjoy building systems, and they want to mimic the pattern of your Ferrari, your Lamborghinis, and like just really get into that craftsman,
Yeah.
But so here's the thing, and this is what I suffer from. You're like my shrink right now.
Okay, all right.
I don't believe in going backwards in my career. I only believe in moving up. I don't believe in going backwards. And so that's the biggest thing is, and I guess I understand that at the end of the day, the world's reality is not your reality. And so like a lot of things in my life, if it's not a hell yeah, then why am I wasting my time doing it? And how am I going to grow as a developer? How am I going to keep going up another $10 an hour, every 12 months, if I'm not in an environment where I could demonstrate certain characteristics of building next level systems. And I
Yeah.
guess it's not all about me, I guess, but that's where I
Well,
want to
no,
go.
it's obviously there's sometimes we've been talking about what the company wants to do, but that of course your personal growth has got nothing to do. If you're a contractor, you have every right to pick and choose jobs that help you grow personally and expand your experience and so on. So I mean that comes to trying to pick the jobs. Um, you can try and be more selective in the jobs. It's hard to be because often you've got no information when you're a contractor. You're going to walk into a situation and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's a tough one. I mean, like I say, one thing is to blog and to do videos and to get a reputation, so that you have a bit of a visibility in the community. And it's always things like networking, the boring stuff. And that's the way. I mean, the best jobs are not going to be found through ads. They're going to be found through personal networks. And
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. That's just life. So if networking and getting a reputation in the community and meeting people at conferences or meeting people at meetups and user groups and then just put it out there, and hopefully you'll find more work that's a bit more interesting, more stimulating. That's a tough one. I think all software developers have this problem. Was 90% of the jobs are not very interesting. And that's just life.
Yeah.
Even in Silicon Valley, I mean, a lot of the jobs even the startup jobs that kind of sound all cool, a lot of them are not actually as interesting as they sound, So I think what you do is you can learn what you can out of them. Sometimes one tip I would say is that sometimes the boring sounding jobs can actually be quite interesting. Like a job working on warehouse management or something. It doesn't sound very interesting, but sometimes it can be quite. You can learn a lot about a particular area. Plus, if it's a very if it's an area of the company where money is really important, they will be quite happy to invest a lot of money in it, which means investing in training, investing in the latest technology. So sometimes you'll find that the warehouse management has more money to spend than the website. Because there's the cost benefit is very much there's a direct link between how much they spend on a system and how much benefit they get from it. They can actually measure that in dollars really easily. So all I would say is sometimes that just because it sounds like a cool job, writing an app or something, that can be actually less interesting from a technical point of view than writing something that sounds like a boring app. So you just have to. You never know. I mean, and I think it's just. Most developers I know have had a lot of shitty jobs. It's just it's just the way it is, really. I don't know what I don't know if you look at all the stuff that everyone's always complaining about their jobs. If you look on Hacker News or Reddit or something, people are always complaining about their jobs, and they're always complaining that they're not taken seriously and that their manager is an idiot. And I mean that's that seems to be a common problem.
It seems like the people that are controlling how software is built are not the people building the software.
Right. So I think this is where, if you look for jobs where the teams are small and they have a deadline and they have freedom, I think freedom is the most important thing to look for. So like I say, if you have a job where you've got 6 months and they've got a lot of money and they want to solve this problem very quickly, those are the situations where they will often give you a lot of freedom to use whatever technology they want. They might say, okay, I don't care whether you use Haskell or whether you use Visual Basic. I just want you to solve the problem in the next 6 months, and I'll give you free rein to figure it out. Those kind of projects would be the ones that are fun to work on, because you can use whatever tools you like, and they typically hire experienced developers who are good at getting stuff done. And so, obviously those are good people to hang out with.
Yeah, they're not bargain hunters.
Exactly. So that would be the kind of, in terms of looking for interesting jobs, that would be the kind of job I'd look for. And like I say, the particular area, whether it's warehouse management or whether it's airline information systems or
I worked in both of those industries before, so it was interesting. I learned a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
About professionalism. Those, man, the aviation industry, like, all about checks and balances and scrutiny. Like, they are on it, and I mean, that contributed to the way that I build software and use static analysis tools and stuff like that.
Right.
I have good news for you. So when I observed you and Tomas, how do you say his last name? Petrick?
Yeah, Petracek.
Petracek. Okay, I butchered that. You, Tomas Petracek, and Mark Seaman, I believe, you can correct me, but I believe that you guys were trying to set up, or someone was trying to set up, or already had established a functional programming consulting firm, or how can I say that a different way? A consulting firm that basically is focused on functional solutions. You probably articulated it a lot better than I could. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's F#. I think you're talking about F# Works.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
That's Thomas and Matthias Brandewinder.
Yeah.
And me and Phil Trelford. And we set up this consulting thing, and we have a website, fsharpworks.com, and to be honest, we've all been doing our own thing, so we haven't really been pushing it as hard as we should have been.
So I have good news.
Huh?
So I have good news for you.
Okay.
I think it's good news. All right. So I have let me start over. I have been observing on various career boards how, like, F#, there's 0 results for F#, right? Yeah. But then I'll type in Scala, and there's like hella results for Scala, and I'm like, well, I mean, I think they're both functional first languages, right? But within the last 4 weeks, because I check every single day, within the last 4 weeks, F# is now a keyword that is dumped into the job posting when they include the entire kitchen sink. So when you look at a job posting, they list every technology known to man under a specific stack. And now I'm seeing F# included as part of one of those words. And that's really recent. So
I think it's becoming a lot more mainstream. I think it's hit the awareness of recruiters and stuff. So that's good. Because there's a lot of people who want to do F#, but people say, well, the jobs aren't there. But I think a lot of shops are now saying, well, we can do a little bit of F#. We can do it as an experiment. And I think it's one of those exponential things where for a long time it kind of bubbles under the radar. But when it starts, I think when there's a bit of momentum, it'll really start kicking off quite fast. I'm getting the same feeling as you.
I was on .NET Rocks. You listen to .NET Rocks?
I saw you on it. I haven't listened to that one yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks to your fun and profit website. I was able to build a healthcare application, an Android application, using Xamarin and F#. So I was on their show talking about my observations and some of the things that I've learned about it. And so,
awesome.
So that's the thing. You may not be aware of it. It amazes me how really, really smart people are, like, really, really humble. Because if I were really smart, I'll be so arrogant. I'm arrogant now, right? But I mean, has it ever dawned on you that, like, because of your website, and I'm dead serious, because of your website and because of the contributions to videos that you, Mark Seaman, Tomas have put out, that, like, one, F# is now included in the kitchen sink of requirements, or nice to have, within job postings, and two is, I was thinking about this morning when I was in the shower. It was probably too much information, but your contributions are going to be responsible for probably 60 months from now. I think that's 5 years from now, of probably 50,000. I mean, 5 years is a long time, and technology moves fast. And I really think that your F sharp and Scholar are going to be like the preferred languages. I do think that. We can have
Yeah,
a
I
conversation
hope
another
so. Yeah,
time.
yeah. I think in 5 years it'll probably be much more mainstream. Yeah.
Yeah, but your contributions, especially that website, is is going to take care of a lot of families, including the family I plan on having. And I'm
Okay.
dead serious. I mean, I think about things differently, but like, yo, you're making a lot of people, or because of your work, your contributions, a lot of people are going to be hitting six figures. The next step is, instead of C Sharp and Java, C++, or JavaScript being the languages that people learn in boot camps and colleges, I really hope that functional first languages are the default languages that people pick up,
Yeah.
and they go functional, and then they know when to use object oriented.
Right.
So just thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. But I just want to say that one of the nice things is the community. I think everyone contributes,
Uh-huh.
and so it's not just, there's a lot of people who've contributed. I mean, I've got my website, but I mean, there's a lot of people, doing stuff on the tooling, making the F sharp, like Ironide
Power
is
tools.
fantastic, and Fake is fantastic, and Packet is fantastic, and the type providers are fantastic, and there's a lot of, all these things come together, I think. So to have a successful language, yeah, you need to have a good documentation, which I contribute to a bit, but you need to have good libraries, you need to have good tooling. Just a lot of these things come together, and I think, yeah, I have a lot of high hopes for F sharp. But all these things are just, we all have our little part to play in the community. So I'm glad if I can help out. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. So I understand your time is precious. I'm about to get on my bike. I got a biker gang to meet up with in an hour. But
All right.
your website is fsharpforfunandprofit.com. I forget.
Yep. Yep. That's it.
Okay. And you're not really. There's a couple things I noticed about you. One is you're on Stack Overflow, but you pick and choose the questions you want to answer. I noticed that.
Yeah. Well, what
And
happens is I'm bored. I tell you what, some people like Thomas and Mark are really big on Stack Overflow.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm bored, and it's like, let's look on Stack Overflow if there's any interesting questions. So like once a month I might go on Stack Overflow and like answer questions, but I don't spend a lot of time on there like answering questions all the time. So that's why sometimes, and it's like, especially questions where I can like have a long answer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer, just use this library. It's like, I feel like there's something I can explain. I really like to explain things to people. I mean, that's definitely my thing. And so if there's something I feel like I can contribute, then I might write a long answer then. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm not. I mean, I really appreciate Stack Overflow existing, because I learn a lot from Stack Overflow.
Mm-hmm.
But I just haven't got I'm not that kind of person who can just like get in there first and get the points for for having the first answer.
Well,
It's a kind of game.
I was doing that with WPF to build
Uh huh.
up my reputation within that space.
Uh huh.
Something else I noticed is you have a Twitter account, but you don't really
No,
broadcast anything. You don't tell us what you're having for breakfast. Like
no, I don't.
you're just very what's the word I'm looking for? Idle.
I'm not.
Within social media, you are. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah. Well, social media. First of all, I'm not naturally the kind of person who would be happy to tell everybody what I had for breakfast. It's like, I just don't think people are that interested. I see people who tweet that kind of stuff, and it's like, now I'm getting into my car. Now I'm going for a bike ride, and now I just finished my bike ride. It's like,
I told you I'm a
I don't
groupie. I'm
really
a
care.
groupie. I care about those
Yeah, yeah.
things.
Oh, well, yeah. But the other thing is that I think social media, I'm actually getting less. I used to be on social media more, and I've decided it's kind of dangerous, just because it can really be a huge time suck. There was an article, actually. I'm gonna retweet it, but
Okay.
it was saying that if your job is, if you get paid for concentrating, like a software developer, anything that trains you not to concentrate is actually a bad thing. And so social media is like kryptonite to people who have to think. you know, whose job it is to do heavy duty thinking and concentrating, because Twitter and Facebook are the exact opposite of that. And he was using the analogy, it's like if you're an athlete,
Stack
it's like
Overflow too, which I kind of scratched my head because the people that are like the technical authorities, they answer my questions within like 2 minutes of me posting it, and I'm like, thank you,
yeah.
but like, are they also working too? Like, I don't know, but
Well,
I still
maybe that.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how people can do that. I couldn't do that. I would just get so distracted. But
Yeah,
it's like the article said, it's like if you're an athlete, you know, you don't want to start smoking because smoking is really bad if you're an athlete. And it's the same thing. I think social media, if you're trying to write a book or you're trying to concentrate, social media is like kryptonite. It's a terrible thing. So I'm trying to stay off it, and especially with this stupid election, it's like I'm really, it's really making me mad. So I'm gonna. That's another reason to stay off social media. So
are you talking about the States, or are you talking about something
yeah,
local
I'm
to
talking
where
about
you're
the
at?
States.
Yeah,
Yeah,
only in America
let's not even
will things like that
go there,
happen. Yeah, we won't. We won't.
because
We won't.
then I'll get really mad. So
Yeah. Well,
uh,
Scott, I really appreciate it. I was like, when you said sure or you say yeah, I'm like, it's kind of like me like walking up. All right, I'm gonna butcher this analogy. You're probably not gonna talk to me after I say this. So like, this is the way I felt. All right, it was like me walking up to like the hottest girl in the nightclub, or laying out like on the beach in South Beach, and just and I'm like, I really want to say what's up. All right, I'm a G. I'm gonna walk up. I'm gonna say what's up, and then she says yes, and then all of a sudden like, oh shoot, I don't think I can handle that. I don't know how to maintain that. Right? That's the way I felt when I sent my invitation to you. You said yeah, and I was like,
well,
oh.
the thing is, it's like, yeah. I mean, this is. I mean, you know, when I make you at the conference, it's like, you know, I don't feel like I'm just a regular guy, you know. I'm not like
No, you had this aura. You had like this bluish aqua glow surrounding you, and I was like, that's Scott Wlaschin.
uh,
You
uh,
didn't even have security by you. I was amazed. Like,
yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, that's one of the nice things. Is like you can meet people. I'm happy to help anybody. That's like, you know, I'm really happy to help. I'm so glad to see. You know, it's been interesting because I think you just started getting to F sharp just about 18 months ago, was it?
I started last October is when I started, almost a year ago.
Yeah. So you came to NEC and you were on asking lots and lots of questions on Stack Overflow,
Yeah,
and
lots.
yeah, lots and lots of questions. But that was, you know, these are the kinds of questions that people are, that, you know, those are useful questions. Those are the kinds of questions that people always ask when they're starting out, and you put them down and people answer them. So hopefully that's a good resource for other people. So I imagine in the last year you've learned a lot, and you know, you've written an app. For
I mean,
God's sake.
I got on .NET Rocks, and when I
There
listen
you
to me
go.
talk about F sharp, I sound really intelligent.
There you
So,
go. Pretty soon people will be coming up to you and you know, coming up and shaking your hand at a conference and saying, "Oh, I've seen your blogs and I've read your stuff," and you know.
yeah, I gotta give back.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm trying to. I mean, this is my attempt. It's less stressful for me to have a conversation versus me try to assume a position of being a technical authority in something that I'm really not intimate with. I'm trying to be, but I'm not
yeah,
there, you know.
yeah. Well, if
So
you like doing video, I mean, you know, if video is your thing, um, I mean, people love watching videos. So yeah, go and
that's all
find.
I
Yeah,
learned.
yeah, yeah. And and
And
videos of you doing coding and stuff, whatever. Yeah, try different stuff out and see what people like.
yeah, yeah. One last thing, and I mean, I don't have the time right now, but hopefully in the near future, right? I would love to talk to you about what it's like to prepare and to be in the conference circuit. So we
Yeah,
hopefully, if you agree to it, we could talk about it maybe in a couple months. But
absolutely. I'll
I'm
be
really
happy.
interested.
Well, are you going to the next NDC in London?
That cost me $4,000. I can't keep doing that, and
Yeah,
I'm unemployed.
that's a lot of money. But I'm happy. I'll tell you what. I'm happy to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, I got the NDC coming up, and I'll be happy to talk to you how I prepared for it, and you know how I do my slides and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about it.
All right, good stuff. Scott Wlaschin. Am I saying your last name right? Wlaschin?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Yo, thank you so much. Really excited. Like I feel like I have this is a major accomplishment for me. I haven't felt this way since are you aware of Jessitron? That's her Twitter name.
Yes, yes. I saw you interview Jessie, yeah.
Oh, you saw that? Oh, wow.
I haven't watched it yet. I saw you had a talk with her. She's great.
Yeah. I told her I was her groupie too, and I probably like creeped her out. But I love watching her on YouTube when she's delivering her conference sermon. So
yeah, she's really passionate, and that's the other thing. I think she's super passionate, and I think talking about doing presentations and stuff. That's a really important thing. Because a lot of presentations, people they're reading their slides and it's kind of boring, and so yeah, she's a fantastic model of how to do, be very enthusiastic, be very passionate, and turn people on to, what she's talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, I was excited, but I have to go. Thank you much for spending an hour with me.
I'm happy to. Just call me. Yeah, I'm happy to chat in the future. Just let me know.
One last thing. All right.
Yeah.
What's the name of your book?
Well, there's the one that I haven't finished is called Understanding Functional Programming.
Okay.
And that's the one I want to finish. So yes.
So do you have like a PayPal or some type of link where people can contribute to expedite this process?
It's on LeanPub, but I don't want people, because if people start doing that, then I might have to then I'll feel guilty and I have to finish it. So I don't want people to actually. I know people. It's like, just give me you my money. It's like, no, I don't, because then I would feel like, I don't know, that would put the pressure on. But maybe I should do that. Maybe I should open it up to payments, and then that would force me to finish it.
I mean, my thought process is like, you should be rewarded for your time in which you help other people make money. You're helping me make money. I've been unemployed for a little while. It's really uncomfortable. I feel like I'm the most skilled unemployed person ever. But people are making money off of F#, or they will be in the near future. And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking donations or contributions, because you're helping a lot of people. So, and it's going towards a good cause. It's the creation of content. But I'm not going to talk your ear off. I think I've done it already.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to hit the stop broadcast button in 3, 2, 1.